new recruits, basically civilians coming from their place, bringing their habits, their beliefs. We basically mold them, develop them into what we want, the end product, the United States Marine.
Everybody who's ever worn a military uniform has gone through some version of it, whether it's basic training, boot camp, or recruit training, and the goal has always been the same: to transform young civilians into soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines. Each service now has a culminating field exercise with names like Victory Forge, Battle Stations, and Warrior Week. Now, Marines think theirs is the toughest. They call it the Crucible. Almost every Friday morning, families and friends flock to graduation day at Marine Corps Recruit Depot, Parris Island. 12 weeks earlier, these young men and women arrived on this remote stretch of the South Carolina coast. Their sons and daughters, brothers and sisters, cousins and friends from across the eastern half of the United States. They came from city and country, from all kinds of neighborhoods, from north and south. Now, 605 of them have made it through boot camp, and they have changed. Now, they're Marines.
I'm definitely more mature. I'm more mature, more responsible. I learned major accountability. Tough. I mean, I'd be lying if I said it was easy.
Boot camp's real intense. I mean, I think anybody can do it. And there's a lot of times that I thought I couldn't. But as long as you tell yourself you never quit, you're going to finish in the end.
You have to push yourself. You have to dig down deep, deep, deep.
Mentally, I got stronger. You know, I wasn't a strong person when I came in about myself or about, like, just the overall aspect of myself.
Behind the changes, the drill instructor.
For some recruits, it's harder than others. We have recruits that come from all different types of lifestyles. Some have had mentors, some that have not had mentors in their lives. And we bring them in here, we mentor them, we lead them, we guide them in that direction where we want them to be.
Different recruits have different takes on what's most difficult about boot camp.
The Crucible, of course, and then just the very beginning with just meeting the drill instructors, getting yelled at for petty stuff.
You have to adapt to stuff that you've never really experienced before in your life.
It's found the hardest thing, just adapting to the small changes, sir.
Mentally being here, being away from your family, everything you're used to, just simple things.
Being away from this Crucible often is harder.
The Crucible of all things. It's the hardest challenge at boot camp.
It may not be at the top of everyone's list.
Gas chamber. That sucked.
But none dispute the Crucible is flat out tough. The Crucible. 54 hours spread over 3 days from the middle of a Thursday night to dawn on Saturday. Recruits get 3 meals ready to eat, or MREs, and not much sleep.
This morning we got up at 02 and got packed and stepped it out. 6 mile hike.
Hiked for like 6 miles. Got here, had chow. Everything just started picking up from there.
A lot of hard work, sir. Definitely some humps. Going to be some difficult humps.
During the next 2 days and nights, recruits will rotate through 36 different stations.
You guys need to get closer together.
29 of them are problem-solving exercises like this one. Recruits have to get 2 ammo cans and all 16 members of their squad over the elevated log. They have to do it in 30 minutes. Success requires planning and teamwork.
Bring his arm up,
There you go.
Everything we train for comes down to this point. Everything we talk about teamwork, we talk about dedication, heart, everything that we push towards, everything we train them, all the basic warrior training and everything comes to play now.
Yep.
It's their last test they have before they become Marines.
This is part of Phase 3 of Marine recruit training. The drill instructors back off from in-your-face intensity and become observers. It's up to the squads to figure out how to succeed in each mission.
Hold on to, yeah, there.
Grab.
It's about working together as a team, getting everyone to come together, and not to be an individual, but to help other people around you.
Jump as high as you can, put your left leg over.
A lot of decisions and choices are left up to them. The drill instructors have mentored them, and they've fallen down. We brought them back up and told them their mistakes, corrected their deficiencies, and let them know what they need to do to make the right decision.
There's also plenty of marching, 54 miles of it during the Crucible, back and forth on a network of abandoned runways that honeycomb the southern end of Parris Island. Recruits often don't realize they're being marched in circles. As the first day wears on, they begin to feel the stress.
Hurry up, get in!
This recruit feels that it's going to get a lot harder when these recruits are deprived of sleep, and since these recruits only get 3 MREs, they're going to be pretty hungry come tomorrow, sir.
And they're not quite sure what to anticipate.
Say we're getting dropped off in the helo, right?
Yes, sir. This recruit's heard a lot of different things and hopes that it is difficult just so you can get the best experience out of it.
He wants difficult? He'll get difficult. For instance, the extended obstacle courses, all based on scenarios from historic Marine battles. This one is called the Battle of Fallujah. It begins with an advance through woods littered with obstacles.
The whole fire team rush together. Rush! Get him down! Get through it. I got go over. Run out. Set for booby trap. Get out! Now we're getting fired on. That means move a little faster. What?
After the tree line, they'll get through here, the coverts, and they'll actually assault through the main course here, utilizing the low crawl, the back crawl, and high crawl that they learned from basic warrior training.
The main course is filled with even more difficult obstacles. Barbed wire.
Keep your knees down, keep your knees down.
Barrier walls.
5, 4, hurry up! Get out, low crawl!
And even more barbed wire.
Push the wire up. Say what?
Sir. The drill instructors drop the observer role and revert to their normal personas.
Get down low, Dave! Aye, sir. Don't get down, crawl back. Aye, sir. Get up! Aye, sir. Sprint! Aye, sir. Okay, hey, partner, you're dead. Lay there.
There are casualties. Fire teams have to stay together. Those that don't are sent back to repeat the course.
Take your whole fire team all the way back.
And of course, no one gets it right on the first try.
Oh, you get all the way back till you start opening your face. Good, get up and go back to the volcano. You want to take your time? Aye, sir. Get up and go back. Aye, sir.
You get sent back to the beginning for not doing something right over and over and over again. You don't just do it once.
2, 3. It teaches them to work as a fire team. And this course is designed, if there's a casualty, a Marine never leaves no one behind. So the casualty, that fire team has to move that casualty all the way across the course.
1, 2, 3, 4.
The object? To simulate the stress of the battlefield. There will be louder events, but this one is still plenty stressful.
In the Crucible, you're asked to work with a team of 16 other guys, and to complete obstacles causes a lot of frustration. So it gets you mentally stressed out, and as soon as you're mentally stressed out, you're asked to do something physically. That's going to tire you out physically. So on top of being very tired and very hungry, you're stressed out. So the Crucible is definitely one of the hardest things this recruit's ever done.
Your head still up! Your head still up! No, you put the start with the camera! Yeah, take it out.
The Marine Corps' rich tradition is on public display all over Parris Island. There's a statue of Iron Mike, an iconic tribute to Parris Island graduates killed in World War I. Across the street is Molly Marine, originally conceived as an aid to recruiting women during World War II. There are buildings that date back to the Marines' earliest days here, and a museum to preserve and promote the heritage. And every graduation Friday, there's a traditional color ceremony for families and guests. The band plays, the colors are raised. Marine history is honored.
3 October 1918, during World War I, 4th Marine Brigade, along with the U.S. 2nd Division.
And the commanding general addresses the crowd.
So whether you're a mother, father, grandparent, coach, mentor, just a friend that's had a hand in developing this young Marine as to what they are today, I say thank you. You probably saw when you came in here, you saw a sign that says, "We make Marines." Well, I think that there are many roads that lead to Parris Island.
That may be, but that sign is on the only road that leads onto the island, an indication of just how isolated it truly is. Parris Island has just over 8,000 acres, but 60% of it is tidal salt marsh. The island has a long military history. The French built a fort near the current main gate in the 1560s, and the Spanish built their own on this lonely-looking site when the French left after less than 2 years. After the English arrived, cotton plantations came to dominate the landscape.
It will be during the American Civil War that the United States Navy will capture this region in 1861 and establish a huge base here.
Plantation owners fled, former slaves became landowners.
And established farms. They also have a setup where black soldiers and black sailors can buy property on Parris Island at reduced rates. So Parris Island, before the Marines got here, was a freedmen community, former slaves. They had about 5 or 6 churches out here, a number of small farms, for the most part growing cotton.
Only one tombstone is left from the large freedmen's cemetery. The Navy abandoned Parris Island to the farmers after the Civil War until
in the 1890s, they start developing it into a major naval station. They built on Parris Island the largest dry dock in the United States up to that time, to take the largest battleships that are built.
Political winds blew the naval operation upstream to Charleston, leaving only a Navy hospital and brig run by the Marines. The Marines tried running an officers' candidate school here, but the only way to get to the island was by boat, and the students complained about the isolation.
What really brings the Marine Corps and the training depot to Parris Island is going to be World War I.
And suddenly there was a need for a larger training facility. Navy Secretary Franklin Delano Roosevelt, with the urging of a South Carolina congressman, established the Marine Corps Recruit Depot at Parris Island.
And by 1919, just as the war ends, they purchased the entire island, about 6,000 acres, and take over the entire Parris Island for recruit training. And we've had the island and some smaller islands around the base ever since.
The island continued to be mostly farmland through the 1920s and 1930s. The outbreak of World War II brought another surge in the need for training facilities. A causeway was finally built from the main highway to Parris Island, and it became the all-marine enclave it is today. There was such a need for instructors that one former DI told us he got the assignment when he was still a private first class. 205,000 men received their recruit training here during the Second World War. 138,000 would be trained for the Korean conflict. That number would jump to 250,000 during the Vietnam era. Over the years, the training has been in more or less continuous evolution, but there are constants. New Marines have always been trained in marksmanship. They've always had a swimming requirement. There has always been rigorous physical training. There has always been close order drill, and lots of it. Oh, and discipline. Lots and lots of that. The former DI who shot these home movies in the early 1970s talks about the motivation ditch. He says he'd send a belligerent recruit out for a few hours in the motivation ditch, and he'd come back a different man. And that DI says the training was even tougher when he went through it in 1958.
There's sort of the joke here that as soon as they graduate, then they look at the recruits and go, well, you don't know what it was like in the old Corps. Recruit training has changed a great deal. It's a lot more sophisticated than it had been in the past, but it still is a very difficult, very grueling experience.
By the way, the motivation ditch disappeared in the 1980s and wouldn't be tolerated today.
I come from an island Carolina sand, where I was broke down and built up and reborn, a fighting man. And my blood runs red, white and blue. I'll brave the cold, the rain, the pain, and the bullets, so you don't have to.
Since World War II, every male recruit from west of the Mississippi has been sent to San Diego for training, and those from east of the Mississippi come to Parris Island. All female recruits have been shipped to South Carolina since 1949. They've been going through the same regimen as the men since 1988. The Crucible was introduced onto the schedule in 1996, a culminating test that forces recruits to apply skills and knowledge learned over the course of boot camp.
They push bayonets at the end, right? Assaulted the enemy.
Yes, sir.
Remember that?
Yes, sir.
Hey, why do they do that?
Though the Crucible relies heavily on high-stress activities, time is also set aside for discussion of core values: duty, honor, commitment.
It's all about what you do on your own time.
And for the DIs to share practical knowledge about life as a Marine.
The biggest thing for me when I talk to the recruits is I try to prepare mentally for what they're going to see when they leave the gates of Parris Island. When I went out there as a PFC in the fleet, things that if I would have known would have better prepared me as a young Marine in the Marine Corps.
Semester hours over the other Marines.
The recruiting slogan says, "The few, the proud, the Marines." The Marines have always wanted to be different.
Probably Marines set themselves apart from the very beginning because they were stationed on board ships to keep the sailors in line. So that right there made them a little more superior to the other men they're serving with. And as we go through time, we find that the Marines use this sort of concept for recruitment and such. There is a mystique to being a Marine. They're supposed to have harder training.
And the young Marines who find their way to Parris Island, they do come by different roads and for a variety of reasons.
Why be a Marine? Who would want to be part of the best?
I want to be hardcore. That's how I am. My family's military, and nobody was in the Marines yet.
My dad was in the Marines, and 3 of my cousins are Marines right now, and they always been idols for me, and I always looked up to them, and it's just something I always wanted to do.
Since I had a really good, decent life here, might as well give something back. So I joined the Marine Corps.
Doing something high above expectations, being looked upon for, and feel pride for what I do.
This recruit saw a lot of things going wrong overseas and wanted to help out in Iraq. That's why this recruit joined the 03, sir. And there's money for college. This recruit hopes to go to college.
I feel personally that if you live in this country, you need to defend it. You know, you don't get invited to someone's house for dinner and not offer to help with the dishes. I'm not going to live in this country and not help it in a time of need.
Day 2 of the Crucible is just as intense as the first.
We train hard to be hard. That's the biggest thing. Is train hard to be hard. We train hard to keep it within the standards, but constantly on them, constantly demanding, because that's the way it's going to be. The Marine Corps is not easy. Take nothing less than perfection. You're never going to achieve perfection, but always try to achieve perfection. Train them as best we can. But training to be basically trained Marines.
Very cool. Very cool. Recruits are now working on 4-hour sleep and short rations.
It's going to be hard. It's the last half. They're going to try to break us off, see who's weak and strong, who's going to quit.
You're trying to develop them leadership skills throughout the whole Crucible. Some of these events are designed to test them both physically but mentally as well. what can the recruit do under stress? How does the team react? And as a drill instructor, you pretty much, you're not giving them the answers, but you're sitting back and evaluating.
Turn right! There are more stations that require planning and coordination. Here, the recruits have to rescue a casualty from the top of this tower, lugging all their equipment with them.
Going through boot camp, there's a lot of times where they actually don't get a chance to work as a team until they finally get out to the Crucible, and then they'll find out where all recruits have different ideas, and then it'll kind of clash against each other, and then they'll make it difficult for them to accomplish the mission, as you can hear right now, sir. You'll see a lot of that. The more they get tired, the more they're going to get confused, and get complacent, and they're going to start making mistakes.
All right, I got it.
As the second day wears on, sleep deprivation and short rations do take their toll.
I guess the hunger. We get 3 MREs for the 2 days that we're out here, and I thought it would be more than enough, but it's kind of hitting me.
There are more grueling obstacle courses. This one is called the Battle of Hue, and at this station, extra battle sounds. The soundtrack of the D-Day landing from the movie Saving Private Ryan plays continuously. You can barely hear the drill instructors, but by now recruits know the message. Nobody makes it through the course on the first try.
That makes it a lot more difficult because it's more energy that the recruits have to put out, but it's a way to learn how to make things right because on a real-life situation, there's no turning back. Recruits have to learn what are they going to do on a real-life situation so that when they are out on the battlefield, they have to accomplish the mission from the first time without any casualties.
I'm tired and exhausted, hungry. Only thing really getting me through is tomorrow's getting the Eagle Globe and Anchor.
The Eagle Globe and Anchor, the Marine Corps symbol. The payoff at the end of the Crucible, a ceremony where recruits will be given the emblem and called Marines for the first time. In the evening, the full company rehearses the ceremony.
Something I've wanted my whole life, the EGA, Eagle Globe and Anchor. It's something I've looked outside my window in my barracks and seen every Saturday morning, wishing, oh, I wish that was me, and now it is me. So tomorrow morning, I'm probably gonna cry. Tomorrow morning's gonna be probably the best feeling I've ever had.
He won't be alone, but there are more ordeals to come. First, a night infiltration course on a pitch-dark night with no moonlight and that ever-encouraging staff.
Push it away from your body and get out of the water!
In the early morning hours, a 9-mile march back to the main post. The company arrives famished and exhausted as dawn is breaking.
The hardest part for me was the 9-mile march back from the end of the Crucible. We had a 115-pound LB pack on, and I was slacking behind. And I started going, my mind started wigging out on me. I didn't know what to do. I thought I wasn't going to make it.
Then, in formation around Parris Island's Iwo Jima statue, the ceremony they've waited for almost 3 months. They're about to receive that treasured emblem.
Now the chill you feel run down your spine is a symbolic fusion of our core values into your souls forever. From this day forward, you will be the guardian of our country, our core, our customs, and our courtesies. May God keep each and every one of you in the palm of his hands. Semper Fidelis.
The recruits reaffirmed their enlistment oath.
The Uniform Code of Military Justice. The Uniform Code of Military Justice. So help me God. So help me God. Arms down.
And then, with the Marine anthem playing softly, drill instructors present each recruit with an Eagle Globe and Anchor emblem, congratulate him for completing training, and for the first time, call him Marine. No spectators, no crowd. Only men who've endured the last 11 grueling weeks of training together. It's a group experience and an intensely personal moment. Many feel proud.
Like you're standing taller than anybody else. Like you're head and shoulders over most people. you accomplished the largest goal of your life. It was the greatest feeling of my life.
Many are emotionally overcome.
People said they weren't going to cry, and when they actually got it, the water started pouring. It's from the worst recruit to the best, to the ones that hid in the shadows, to the ones that made their name for themselves. Every single one shed a tear.
When they put it in your hand and tell you to hold it close to your heart and say, "Job well done, Marine," that's the best feeling I've ever had in my life.
They're no longer recruits, they're Marines singing their anthem.
Senior drill instructor, take charge of your new Marines and feed them a warrior's breakfast.
After the emblem ceremony, the new Marines are dismissed for a warrior's breakfast. That's a smorgasbord of steak, potatoes, and all manner of breakfast foods, as much as they can eat. And Marines who've been worked very hard and fed little for more than 2 days, they can eat a lot. I'm Tech Sergeant Ryan Hoke, and you've been watching Recon.